Hey folks, it's Nate, and thanks for joining me for another iconic comic review. Today we're going to be taking a look at Kindred Heaven's Book 3. You may notice that your angle here is a little bit different. I'm using a different setup than what I have done live recordings with in the past. Angles are going to be a little bit different. We're in the process of figuring that out, but hopefully you can still tell what's going on pretty clearly here, and you enjoy what you see. Now, this book is brought to you by Studio Baba, which is a two-man team consisting of Bryce Beal as the writer and Scott Malin as the artist. I've already done two reviews of the two previous volumes of this series. This is a series with high continuity, which is to say the stories feed from one into the next. And I really can't review this book without spoiling some elements of previous books. So if you're curious about the story as a whole, I think you'll be best off watching those previous reviews than watching this one. This is more for people who have already read the series and are curious about where it's going. And I have a lot to say about that because if you have read the series up until this point, you know that at the end of the previous book, we left off at a major inflection point. However, I am going to have to discuss previous books in order to review this one, and if you want to be unspoiled for whatever reason concerning this series, now is a good time to go back and maybe watch some of those older reviews and develop an opinion on whether you want to read it or not. Because, yeah, I do have to talk about the ending of some of the previous books in order to discuss this. Okay? Okay. I assume everyone who's still here has either read those books or really doesn't care if they're spoiled. At the end of the previous book, Isabel Voigt, our protagonist and aspiring wind racer, wind racing, of course, being that racing of levitating vehicles that is in vogue in this world at this time, in a world roughly reminiscent of 1920s technology, except for the hovercraft thing. This is an interesting sport, makes for very good visuals, and Isabel, she is the daughter of two famous wind racers. Her mother died in a wind racing accident, and her father, Carl, has since been somewhat overprotective, understandably. Isabel is an interesting protagonist because she wants to do something people don't want her to do, which makes us instantly sympathetic towards her. And she has a lot of ambition, which is, a trait that can be a double-edged sword. At the end of the previous book, she had gone on pilgrimage, essentially, to study under a very elite wind racer, and it was supposed to take her 3 years. At the same time, her brother was leading Team Pegasus into the big race at the Diamond Strait, a race against Team Cerberus, the rival team, which had been built up for quite some time. All in all, I think that this is a good place for new readers to come in, because we come in to this book at the end of that 3-year training period. We don't immediately find out what happened on the Diamond Strait, other than the fact that Team Pegasus won. That's pretty significant because there was a lot of question about whether Team Pegasus, which was a team that had supposedly gone past its best days, could make a comeback, and it seems like they have. And Isabel seems to have gotten a letter about this. She is still somewhat in touch with her family at home, and she's been training for 3 years. I like in particular the point where Isabel is showing the fruits of her training the most, because we get to see her in a new context. Isabel has always been the kid of Team Pegasus. She's always been a little bit behind the ball, struggling to prove herself. And while she does have to pass a final test in order to end her 3-year training period, she is now kind of a mentor to some younger wind racers. She gets to be a little motherly, which is something we don't see a whole lot of her from her in the previous books. And it's nice to see a new side of the character. That said, we're not going to stay here very long. We don't see Isabel in this training mode for a very long period of time. And I think it would have been nice to sit with this a little bit more, or find other moments to see her in these other contexts. Because for the most part, we see her on the racetrack being the kid of the racing team up until this point. And she's going to go right back to that context as well. So that fresh angle was nice, and I would have liked a little more of it. When she gets back, she discovers that her father is sick, and he passes away, and his team has been bought out by Alexander Fitch, the owner of Team Cerberus, and this sets up a new vector of conflict for her. She was already in conflict with Team Cerberus, but now a lot of her team is kind of scattered. And there's also the introduction of a kind of a gangster organized crime character who apparently loaned Carl, Isabel's father, some money so he could make that last race on the Diamond Straight. So all in all, there's a lot going on in this book. Isabel is jumping a lot of different ways. I would identify 3 main sources of conflict for her in this book. Actually, 4. First, whether she can actually finish her training and pass her final exam. Second, whether she's going to be able to beat Team Cerberus and prove that she and her father's visions of wind racing, well, father and mother's visions of wind racing are better than Alexander Fitch's. Third, whether she can deal with this mobster who's trying to extract money. And fourth, just the passage of time has changed everything about the world she knows. That's a lot in one book, and I feel like it would have been better to condense or even remove one of those points of conflict from the book. And if I was an editor helping Studio Baba develop this idea, I would have recommended they push the mobster all the way to the end of the book, have his introduction and demand for money be maybe the cliffhanger for the end of the book, and resolve it in the next book, because you can't really get rid of Team Cerberus. That was already the conflict. Ditto for the training. And the passage of time feels kind of like a natural extension of the training. But I think having those 2 threads of conflict and letting the audience get a hold of those would have been better. That said, a lot of the way the conflicts are presented to us are quite pleasing. Again, I really like the part where Isabel is in training. I also like the sequence with Alexander Fitch at Carl's funeral. It does a lot to remind you that while Alexander is ruthless, conniving, and selfish, he does have a human side to him. And you see a little bit of that come out in each book. And this particular book doesn't miss the opportunity presented by giving us a funeral scene to show us another human side of Alexander Fitch. Even though he's a pretty terrible person, that kind of well-roundedness and the excellent pivot from human sympathy to, ruthless, narcissistic self-aggrandizement is a reminder of why these kinds of people are so frustrating and nasty to deal with. It's a well-written and well-executed scene. On the other hand, the appearance of the gangster is, I can't even remember his name. He obviously didn't make a big impression on me. He just sort of comes and goes, and I'm not sure if he's going to be an ongoing difficulty that Isabel has to deal with, or if this was just a way of showing how she's changed over time, just as everything else in the world has. All in all, narratively, while I think this book is overfull, I think it executes very well on about 80% of what it sets out to do. And it's that last 20% that really just doesn't have any room to breathe or be expanded on that bothers me. And I'm sure it would have been, that character would have been better if he had a little more page time, a little more development, give us, a clear idea beyond just the demand for money, what the conflict between him and Isabel was or is going to be. Because most of the conflicts in Kindred Heavens are very character driven. They're driven by ambitions, by personality types, by vision and goals. And this particular character feels out of place because he's not a source of conflict. that matches up with that. I would have liked to have a clearer idea what kind of conflict he was going to be, or if it was just going to be money. I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but I could have used more of that character if he's going to be important, and if he's not going to be important, it feels kind of superfluous in this book. Like I said, I would have pushed him to the back if I was writing this. Artistically, Kindred Heavens is quite good, and it's difficult to change your character models on the fly like this, but it's interesting because it's hard to pin down like these character models. Here we have Robin and Isabel, Robin being Isabel's boyfriend from Team Pegasus. They're older, but I'm not really sure what's changed. It's very subtle, and I have to give props to Malin. It's hard to tweak a character design that you've drawn a lot over the years, and have that change sit without looking weird or out of place. He manages, I don't know if he just changed the hair and the eyes and the face a little bit or what. He does manage to give most of these characters, the ones that were very young, Isabel and Robin, I believe, are 15 or 16 in Volume 1. So now they'd be around 18, 19, maybe 20 at this point. They do look older, a little bit older and a little more mature, but it's hard to put your finger on exactly what's changed. And that's very impressive because people, especially, once you're in your mid-teens to your 20s, yeah, you undergo some changes, but it's very hard to put your finger on them in most cases. People don't change drastically in over, that short of a period of time. Yet puberty does do a lot to, your general look, your bearing. And I feel like he's managed to capture that on the page, but I can't tell you what he did to do it. If he even did anything. I mean, I feel like something must have happened beyond, Isabel has longer hair in her new character model. Maybe the limbs are slightly longer proportion. I don't know. But Robin definitely changed. He has a more angular face. If you go back and you look at his old character model, he had a little more rounded face. So that is definitely a change that was made. And that, again, fits very well with a young man coming out of puberty. So I'm really impressed with the character work that Malin accomplishes in the book. He's always been very good at conveying emotion, and these subtle changes in character design are also a testament to an artist who really has dialed in his character models and knows how to tweak them to change the impression they give. It's very cool. He also does a lot of creative drawing in the way he composes these race scenes. We saw there's basically one race per book, and I think this latest one is the clearest in terms of setting up a natural progression to the action and giving you a sense of what the race course looks like as they're going through it. Racing is a unique kind of action to present, especially cross-country racing, which is what wind racing largely is. So it's pretty impressive. There's also a sequence I like in the middle when you finally learn what happened at the Diamond Strait. It's not a traditional flashback. It's actually shown as a video reel, and it's on actual reels. You can see, the film and the little holes for the teeth on the wheels as the panels go by. It's a very creative way of showing us that. I'm not sure whose idea it was, or if the two guys came up with it by putting their heads together, but it's pretty good. I like that. There's a lot of creativity in this book. So, do I recommend it? Well, if you've read the first two books already, you've enjoyed the examination of racing and some of the family drama elements, and that kind of competitive sportsman-like ethos that was in the previous books, you will probably enjoy this one. That said, I don't know if I'm the best person to recommend this book because it's really not my cup of tea. The previous couple of books, the character work and the sense of comedy was enough to kind of hold my interest. And I was curious what was going to happen at the Diamond Strait. That was really the big mystery that kind of kept my interest in the series, even though this kind of sports-driven story not doesn't have the strongest appeal to me. I mean, I like some sports movies, but I'm not here for all of them. Racing has never really grabbed my interest. Um, and while I did enjoy some of the character work in Volume 3 of Kindred Heavens, I think this is where I'm going to drop the series, at least for the moment. It's not that Studio Baba has put out a bad product. They have a pretty good product, and they're getting better at, balancing their character work, their action, and kind of setting expectations a little bit better. The Diamond Strait was a big mystery, and I was waiting for the payoff for it for 2 books. And I knew I was going to get a payoff in this book. So, but it was becoming very clear to me that the Diamond Strait was not really the big thing that I was waiting for. And they haven't really set another landmark achievement for the Wind Racing team, Team Pegasus, in the future. And without something like that to look for, I'm not sure I really want to follow this. It is, buying comic books is fairly expensive as a hobby, and Kindred Heavens is really, honestly, a cheap book compared to some. But I don't know, it's just not my cup of tea. I think, again, if you do enjoy that kind of sportsmanship, you will really enjoy this book. And I think both of the creators are very intelligent and hard-working guys to put out books with the regularity they are, with this kind of care in storytelling and especially in the art. But it's just not as appealing to me as some other things out there. I know there's an audience for this book. It's unfortunately not me. I'm very impressed with what Studio Baba has achieved, and I wish them all the best. Perhaps at some point in the future, when they have an omnibus that wraps up a larger chunk of the story, I will come back and check it out and see, where all these threads go. But right now, I don't think I'm interested in following them issue to issue in the future. And that's, again, just to be perfectly clear, if you're interested in this idea of an alternate history style of racing with, levitating vehicles, kind of like pod racers, probably enjoy Kindred Heavens a great deal. But if that premise doesn't grab you right away, I would probably give this series a pass, unfortunately, because I'm just not sure that the other elements there are enough to hold your interest. When the idea of wind racing and the politics and the goals and ambitions of it are so central to the story. Yeah, it was a good read, and I'm really impressed again with Malin's art. But I think this is the end of my reviews for Kindred Heavens. Give it a look if you're into that kind of sportsmanship and racing-driven storyline. But if that's not your cup of tea, I really can't recommend this book to you. Let me know what you think of Kindred Heavens if you've read it down in the comments below. Tell me why I'm wrong about wind racing and why you're fascinated by it if you are. If you'd like to support me in my endeavors reviewing independent books, all I ask in support is that you pick up my own book. I have it linked down in the comments below. Have Spell Will Travel is a weird Western tale. Actually, 8 of them collected into a single volume, following the adventures of a spell-wielding mercenary as he travels the Colombian West. And if you want to support me, you can check that out. Let me know what you think about it if you've read it. While you're down in those comments, there's a like button and a subscribe button. You can use them as you see fit. I will talk to you later.